This video is sponsored by deadliest Energy Blend and by Reaper Apparel Company. Stay tuned till after the video to learn how you can save 10% off of your order. The date, May 22nd, 2011. A day that saw one of the most powerful tornadoes to ever exist hit the massive city of Joplin, Missouri. Come on, move. This has been one of those storms that has been a massive undertaking to gather research for, to just kind of look at and just say, wow. This was a storm unlike any other, at least for us still living here in this millennium. Because while there have been powerful tornadoes in the past, as far as the 2000s are concerned, nothing even comes close to this one. The costliest tornado perhaps in world history, and the deadliest tornado since 1947. And the first tornado since that time period to have over 100 deaths at least. And it has left a lasting impression long after it's been gone. A generational storm in a year full of them. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2011 Joplin, Missouri EF5 tornado here on Tornado Tales.
Oh, that is scary. The truck is, oh my gosh. Holy smokes.
What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of Tornado Tales, where today we are going to be talking about the 2011 Joplin, Missouri EF5 tornado. Now, there have been a lot of documentaries that have been made regarding this particular storm, and there have been a lot of YouTubers that have done this subject about Joplin many times over. Well, now it's my turn, because, I mean, I can't have a show called Tornado Tales if I don't at least talk about this tornado. Considering that it's the costliest tornado in U.S. history and probably in world history, and it left such an impact not only on the people of Joplin, but the people who helped clean up there, and literally the entire nation was gripped by this tornado, and it left such a lasting impact for years afterwards, even after it was gone. Now, this episode has been months in the making, because it's kind of hard to put into words to describe just how crazy this storm was in a year that was already crazy to begin with. Just to give you an idea, this is 2011 we're talking about. Now, just 4 years earlier, in 2007, the EF scale, the Enhanced Fujita scale, was put into service. And from that point to now, March 2024, which is the time I'm recording this, there have been a total of 9 EF5 tornadoes recorded. And considering that on average there's about somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 tornadoes per year on average, when you average out 9 EF5 tornadoes over a 17-year period, that's basically one every 2 years out of potentially thousands of tornadoes. So the EF5 tornado has been exceedingly rare. There have been a lot of EF4s, but there have been very, very few of the maxi tornadoes, which with the old EF scale they were already rare to begin with, but now with the new with the new guidelines in place, the maxi tornado has become even more rare. And there's only been 9 of them over the last 17 years. So one every 2 years. And we have not seen an EF5 tornado in over a decade. The last tornado to be rated in EF5 was the 2013 Moore tornado, which I covered in episode 2 of this show last year. So 9 EF5 tornadoes in the last 17 years. 2011 had 6 of those. Yeah. Of the 9 EF5 tornadoes that we've seen in the last 17 years, 6 of those 9 happened in 2011. 4 in the same day. Of course, that day was April 27th, 2011. The day of the 2011 super outbreak, when it reached its absolute peak. Joplin was the 5th EF5 tornado. And then there was a 6th one 2 days later, the Piedmont tornado, that reached EF5 status. So, needless to say, 2011 was a banner year for tornadoes. In fact, it had the second highest tornado touchdown count of any year other than 2004. It had the second highest of all time. So 2011 was a banner year, to say the least. And there were even strong EF4 tornadoes that had left such a lasting impact and just had an aura about them, like the Tuscaloosa tornado, which was rated as a high-end EF4. It wasn't even rated an EF5, yet the Tuscaloosa tornado was probably the most famous out of the 2011 super outbreak, which is a tornado we will be covering in the future. But the Joplin tornado stood head and shoulders above all those. And when you consider the fact that there were so many powerful tornadoes that took place in 2011, that says a lot. It just goes to show you just how devastating this tornado was. One of the highest death tolls we had ever seen. The costliest tornado in U.S. history and perhaps world history. And it left a lasting impact that is still felt to this day. Because the people that had to live through that tornado, they're never going to forget it. Why should they? How could they? So, we're going to take a dive into one of the most powerful tornadoes to ever exist, a generational storm in a year full of them. So, let's get into it.
However, it is just so rain-soft at this point in time.
Yes.
We really can't see up there. Wow, look at that shot.
Yep, there's a look to the northwest of us.
Wow.
We are in western Joplin, so that's looking to the northwest. As we mentioned before, a high precipitation supercell, so that means you're not going to be able to see a tornado if there in fact is one on the ground. Right now it looks like we just have some reports of funnel clouds, and this storm does have a history of producing funnel clouds as well as hail up to the size of baseball, perhaps softballs. Right now we're just expecting possibly tennis ball size hail, golf ball size hail, but still very dangerous, very damaging hail, in addition to the possibility, the very real possibility of a tornado. And Jeremiah, I just want to go over some of the cities that are going to be impacted from this morning. Once again, Airport Drive, Alba, Asbury, Atlas, Brooklyn Heights, Carl Junction, Carterville, Lakeside, Next City, Northeastern Joplin, Oakland Park, Oronogo, Purcell, Waco, Webb City. Addition to that, we have Baxter Springs, Cliff Village, Dennis Acres, Diamond, Dunwich, Duquesne, Fidelity, Galena, Iron Gates, Joplin, Leawood, Lowell, Reddings Mill, Riverton, Saginaw, Shoal Creek Drive, Shoal Creek Estates, Shoal Creek Estate, I guess, National Weather Service was really concerned about you guys, and Silver Creek. So lots of cities in the path of this storm, moving to the east and the northeast at about 30 to 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, Caitlin, a National Weather Service update just now. They are reporting that there continue to be unconfirmed reports of a funnel cloud near Riverton. So this storm, again, does have a history of producing funnel clouds. I spoke with Cherokee County Emergency Management Director Jason Allison just a little while ago. He told me he heard reports earlier with this storm producing funnel clouds near the Columbus area. Now that threat has passed for Cherokee County. It's now moved into southwest Missouri. Let's go back to the Freeman First Alert Doppler radar. We'll zoom out, show you that there, again, is a little bit of good news with this storm, that for the moment, this is the main event making its way through the 4 states at this point in time. But everywhere you see that light yellow, that is a tornado watch in place until 9 o'clock this evening. We're going to zoom back in on this storm. This tornado warning is in place for Cherokee, Jasper, and Newton counties until 6 o'clock this evening. We've been mentioning this for the last little bit, that this storm does have a history of producing a lot of rain.
So, taking a deep dive into this. On the evening of May 21st, 2011, the day before, an area of low pressure was centered around over western South Dakota. This feature, in addition to steep lapse rates and dew points above 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius, was conducive to the development of supercells later in the day. Very large hail was forecast, but the tornado threat was forecast to remain isolated. At 8 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center issued a slight risk of severe storms for much of the Upper Plains and Midwest. However, by 8 a.m. on May 22nd, forecasters at the Storm Prediction Center realized that a more intense weather outbreak was likely to occur and upgraded a large swath of the Midwest to a moderate risk. The system was forecast to evolve into a wave early Monday morning as a trough strengthened from the western United States. At the surface, a cold front was forecast to pass through the region later in the day, while a dry line was forecast to intersect the cold front in Kansas. These features, accompanied by the low pressure system, encouraged very strong storm development along the cold front. By the 11:30 a.m. CDT updated outlook, certainty had grown stronger that a major severe weather event would occur that afternoon. A public severe weather outlook was issued at this time, and the outlook stated that severe weather was expected that afternoon with tornadoes, large hail, and strong winds all named as threats. So, the Storm Prediction Center initially just issued a slight risk for severe weather, but as the day went along, and the storms just continued to gather strength, and the environment was starting to ripen, I guess you could say. And it was starting to look very, very likely that severe weather was going to happen. They didn't realize how severe it was going to be, but they realized that, yeah, we should probably upgrade the severe weather outlook to include tornadoes, large hail, and strong winds as threats, which is a good thing. At 1:30 p.m., 4 hours prior to the tornado, the Storm Prediction Center issued a tornado watch for southwestern Missouri to remain in effect until 9 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The watch predicted explosive thunderstorm development with a strong tornado or two possible. Thunderstorms began developing between 2 and 3 p.m. over southeast Kansas. They quickly became severe, and as thunderstorm development continued moving to the east, forecasters became more concerned about imminent tornado development. A tornado warning for the severe thunderstorm west of Joplin that eventually produced the EF5 tornado was first issued at 5:17 p.m., 17 minutes before it touched down and 19 minutes before it entered the city of Joplin. So, this was not a case. Unlike what happened in Plainfield, Illinois, where that storm went completely unwarned until minutes after the fact. I mean, the Storm Prediction Center in this case correctly predicted that this tornado was going to touch down because they had a tornado warning issued for the storm 17 minutes before it touched down and 19 minutes before it entered the city of Joplin. So, I mean, the Storm Prediction Center did everything that they could do to warn the people of Joplin that the storm was imminent. But, you know, as the Weather Service, there's only so much you can do. So, the tornado first touched down in Newton County, Missouri, just east of the Missouri-Kansas state line, approximately 1/2 mile southwest of the intersection of South Central City Road and 32nd Street at 5:34 p.m. Eyewitnesses and storm chasers, which there were a few, reported multiple vortices rotating around the parent circulation. Here, the tornado downed several large trees at EF0 intensity. Civil defense sirens sounded in Joplin 20 minutes before the tornado struck, in response to the tornado warning issued at 5:17 p.m. for northwestern Newton and southwestern Jasper counties in Missouri and southeastern portions of Cherokee County, Kansas, but many Joplin residents did not heed the warning or the sirens. So like I said, the Storm Prediction Center did everything that they could do to warn the people of Joplin. So now the onus, as I've said before, is on the citizens. It is up to them to decide whether or not to take the warning seriously. Now the thing about this tornado, and the beginnings of it were being filmed by a group called the Base Hunters. I believe that's what their name is. And they basically were filming the beginning of this tornado, and it crossed the road right in front of them, and it was just a little rope tornado. And then, within a matter of seconds, this thing evolved from a little rope tornado into a massive wedge, almost instantaneously. When you see a tornado do that, grow as big as it did within seconds, that should be an indicator to you that this is a powerful storm. Because for it to go from a little tornado into a massive wedge almost instantaneously it's unreal. It is scary. And the storm chasers that were chasing it immediately realized that it was heading directly at Joplin. And they were on the phone, on the horn, trying to tell them, hey, there's a massive tornado heading straight for the city of Joplin. In fact, there was a news broadcast that had the severe weather alert going. And they actually caught the tornado heading straight towards Joplin on their tower cam. Very reminiscent to what happened during the 2011 super outbreak in Alabama, where during ABC 3340's broadcast with James Spann and Jason Simpson, there were actually two tornadoes that they caught on their tower cams. One that went through the city of Coleman, and then another one which went through Tuscaloosa. So this was very, very similar, except those two tornadoes were rated EF4s. This is an EF5 monster that was caught on their tower cam.
This is a severe weather alert.
Good evening. We've got some information on this storm. Let's go ahead and go to the Freeman First Alert Doppler radar. Galena is reporting, trained weather spotters in Galena are reporting now sightings of funnel clouds. Caitlin, you were telling me about that just a moment ago.
Yeah, actually, it looks like for right now that rotation is still between the Joplin-Galena area. That's where kind of that inflow is. In fact, right outside of the KSN studio here in western Joplin, we can kind of see those clouds rotating. And it looks like between Joplin and Iron Gates is going to see that rotation as well. Right now, we don't have reports of a confirmed tornado on the ground, but we do have National Weather Service personnel stating that Galena has a public report of a funnel cloud. Public report meaning that one of their trained spotters hasn't seen it, but there's our tower cam
That would appear to be a power flash. That could be from a lightning strike, but that is the portion of the storm that we have been concerned with.
Tornado sirens once again.
Tornado sirens once again going off in Joplin. Those are definitely power flashes that we are seeing on the ground.
In southern Jasper, northern Newton, take cover.
Yes, please.
Right now.
Please
I am telling you to take cover.
Take cover right now.
We do have a
Folks,
tornado on the ground.
This is a tornado. Yeah, this is a very dangerous situation. We cannot stress this enough. If you are in Joplin, please take cover.
Once again, that tornado just to the south of us on the ground. We can see it on our tower cam.
Absolutely, and
once again, this is producing a lot of precipitation. If you go outside, you may not be able to see it. Take shelter now. It looks like this is a pretty powerful tornado. You can see that it was taking out those transformers.
Absolutely.
It continues to push off to the east in Joplin. A very dangerous situation. Once again, very dangerous lightning, some very large hail in store also. So continue to take cover from this storm. We can see that tornado on the ground from our tower cam. We are continuing to track that.
No, it is certainly going off. Caitlin, I'm just looking out the door right now. Please do not go outside and try to track this storm, folks. You can't see anything outside. It is rain wrapped. This is a dangerous, dangerous situation at this point in time. We're going to continue to track this storm at this point in time.
I don't think it's going to hit our station. We don't anticipate that. But take shelter anyways.
Yeah, take shelter immediately, folks. If you can hear us, if we are still able to broadcast, you need to take shelter if you are in western Joplin at this point in time. Please continue to.
Just in case it heads back on.
All right, we're off air.
Yeah.
So, the tornado moved east-northeast and strengthened to EF1 intensity as it continued through rural areas towards Joplin, snapping trees and power poles and damaging outbuildings. Widening, the tornado then tracked into the more densely populated southwest corner of the city near the Twin Hills Country Club. It heavily damaged several homes at a subdivision in this area at up to EF3 strength. The tornado continued to cause EF3 damage as it moved through another subdivision just east of Iron Gates Road. Numerous homes were destroyed and multiple vehicles tossed around, some of which were thrown onto or rolled into homes. The tornado reached EF4 intensity just before crossing South Schifferdecker Avenue. And it was at this point that the tornado strengthened into its most powerful point when it reached maxi tornado status, EF5 intensity. The now massive and wedge-shaped tornado then crossed South Schifferdecker Avenue at 5:38 p.m., producing its first area EF4 damage only 4 minutes after touching down. As several small but well-built commercial buildings were flattened, consistent EF4 to EF5 damage was noted east of South Schifferdecker Avenue and continued through most of southern Joplin. Numerous homes, buildings, and medical buildings were flattened in this area, with concrete walls collapsed and crushed into the foundations. A large steel-reinforced step and floor structure leading to a completely destroyed medical building was deflected upwards several inches and cracked. Now think about that for a second. A large steel-reinforced step and floor structure leading to a completely destroyed medical building was deflected upward several inches and cracked. Steel reinforced. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how powerful this tornado was, I don't know what does. Well, actually, there is a couple of things. Steel trestles from some of the buildings were rolled up like paper, and deformation or twisting of the main support beams was noted. Multiple vehicles were thrown and mangled or wrapped around trees nearby. Several 300-pound concrete parking stops, anchored with rebar, were torn from a parking lot in this area and thrown up to 60 yards away. Let me roll that back. Several 1,200-pound concrete parking stops anchored with rebar. They were anchored with rebar, which means that they shouldn't go anywhere, like whatsoever. These are concrete parking stops anchored with rebar to the ground, probably several feet deep, I would say. And yet this tornado just casually ripped them up out of the ground and threw them half a football field away. That's insanity. In fact, Iowa State University wind engineer Partha Sakar calculated the force needed to remove the parking stops from the lot and found that winds exceeding 200 miles per hour would have been required. And why is that so significant? Because under the new enhanced Fujita scale, any wind speeds over 200 miles an hour, not at 200 miles an hour, but over 200 miles an hour, 201 miles an hour or over, is considered EF5 level strength. Yeah. So it was at this point that this monster became an EF5 tornado. In fact, there was no more proof of that than the St. John's Regional Medical Center. A building that was a well-built building, concrete foundation, concrete building, steel reinforced. This sucker was completely twisted off of its foundation. Yeah. Damage became remarkably widespread and catastrophic at and around the nearby St. John's Regional Medical Center, which is now known as the Mercy Center, which lost nearly every window on 3 sides, interior walls, ceilings, and part of its roof. Its life flight helicopter was also blown away and destroyed. Loss of backup power caused 5 fatalities, which were people on life support. And the 9-story building was so damaged that it was deemed structurally compromised and later torn down and had to be rebuilt 2 years later. According to the National Weather Service office in Springfield, Missouri, such extreme structural damage to such a large and well-built structure likely indicated winds at or exceeding 200 miles per hour. Vehicles in the hospital parking lot were thrown into the air and mangled beyond recognition, foobarred in other words, including a semi-truck that was tossed 125 yards and wrapped completely around a debarked tree. Small debris from the hospital, including x-rays, medical reports, and dental records, was found in Greene and Polk counties many miles to the east. Windrowing of debris was noted in this area, and more concrete parking stops were removed from the St. John's parking lot. Virtually every house near McClellan Boulevard and 26th Street was flattened. Some were swept completely away, and trees sustained severe debarking. Yeah, there are many pictures where if you look at St. John's Regional Medical Center from a distance and you see everything around it, it's just completely destroyed. Trees just completely debarked, no branches. I mean, it looked like the atom bomb had gone off in the center of Joplin. And it's these kind of visuals that also gave Joplin, the Joplin tornado, its lasting legacy. Because last year, when a massive high-end EF4 tornado hit Rolling Fork, Mississippi, the message that was going out over the airwaves was, it looks exactly like Joplin. That is one of the lasting legacies. Now, it's being compared to tornadoes that happen here in the present day. Saying, yeah, this looks exactly like what happened in Joplin. That's called having a legacy, folks. And that's what this tornado basically created. It created a lasting legacy that is still felt to this day, in one shape or another. And the thing about it is, it hadn't even hit its peak intensity yet. As the tornado tracked eastward, it maintained EF5 strength as it crossed Main Street, Route 43, between 20th and 26th Streets. It heavily damaged every business along that stretch and virtually destroyed several institutional buildings. It tracked just south of downtown, narrowly missing it. Thank God it did, or else the death toll would have been much higher than it was. Entire neighborhoods were leveled in this area, with some more homes swept away and trees were stripped completely of their bark. At some residences, reinforced concrete porches were deformed or in some cases completely torn away. Damage to driveways was noted at some residences as well. Numerous vehicles were tossed up several blocks and a few homeowners never located their vehicles. A large church, a large nursing home, Franklin Technology Center, St. Mary's Catholic Church and School, and Joplin High School were all destroyed along this corridor. The Greenbrier Nursing Home was completely leveled, with about 21 fatalities occurring there alone. No one was in the high school at the time, as the graduation ceremonies held about 3 miles to the north at the Missouri Southern State University had concluded shortly before the storm. There is a sad story to come out of that. There was actually a father and a son that were actually traveling home after the son had completed his high school graduation. You know, it's a time that, you know, should have been a joyous occasion, but they were caught in the path of the Joplin tornado literally like a minute before they got home. And unfortunately, the son got sucked out of the tornado and did not survive.
You never want to see your son's name as a memorial, you know?
Mark Norton survived the Joplin tornado. His 18-year-old son, Will, did not.
If we'd have been 5 seconds sooner, we would have been past it.
They were driving home from Will's high school graduation, less than a minute from home.
As he was pulling over, you know, and stopping the vehicle, I can remember him praying and reciting scripture. And he kept praying. I remember thinking, gosh, he is so scared, but he's, and I had my arm on him, and but during that time, all the windows were blown out. There was pieces of plumbing and junk and steel going through the car, and it was picking us up and throwing us on the top like 3 different times, you know. And I don't know when I actually lost him.
Now, 5 years later, Mark tries to channel his pain for the positive because he knows that's what Will would have wanted.
You were talking about meant to be. I think it was I was supposed to be there with him, you know, and witness that. And he did so much for so many people in his lifetime.
Nearly $1 million in private money paid for the Will Norton Miracle Field, a place where kids with special needs can come play ball.
Every kid, when they come across that home plate, I mean, they're smiling.
Mark often spends time here. He relies on his faith and holds on to their memories, taking it all one breath at a time.
So, you know, we had 18 wonderful years, and we know we'll see him again. So we just get from here to there. And I like to think he's sitting in the car next to me sometimes.
I mean, it's just one of the many sad tales that comes out of this storm. I mean, there are tales of heroism, and there are tales of sadness. And this was one of those cases. You know, and this is one of the things that kind of made this episode, why it took so long to make this episode, is because, you know, I've watched a lot of footage, a lot of newscasts regarding the aftermath and the victims and their families, and it's tough to watch. Even now, after 13 years, it is extremely difficult to watch. And I mean, making this episode, it's not easy. It really isn't, because you feel the survivors' pain and despair, and their families having lost loved ones. I mean, the grief is just, it's indescribable. And it kind of makes you stop and think, man, this could have easily very well happened to me or my family. It's crazy to think about. But continuing on. Pieces of cardboard were found embedded in stucco walls that remained standing at Joplin High School. Steel beams and pieces of fencing were deeply embedded into the ground. In fields near the high school, steel fence posts were bent to the ground in opposite directions, and a school bus was thrown into a nearby bus garage. As the tornado crossed Connecticut Avenue further to the east, it destroyed several large apartment buildings, a Dillon's grocery store, and a bank. Only the concrete safety deposit box vault remained at the bank. And a wooden 2x4 was found speared completely through a concrete curb at one location. The tornado then approached Range Line Road, the main commercial strip in the eastern part of Joplin, affecting additional neighborhoods along 20th Street. So, now, the heavily rain-wrapped tornado continued at EF5 intensity as it crossed Range Line Road. In that corridor between about 13th and 32nd Streets, the tornado continued producing catastrophic damage as it reached its widest point, nearly 1 mile across. As the tornado struck a Pizza Hut, and this is a really sad story that's about to come up. It's sad, but it's also a tale of heroism. As the tornado struck a Pizza Hut on South Range Line Road, store manager Christopher Lucas herded 4 employees and 15 customers into a walk-in freezer. With difficulty closing the door, he wrapped a bungee cord, holding the door shut around his arm until he was sucked out and killed by the tornado. There was a news piece about Christopher Lucas and how he was a God-fearing man, and he was also a father of 2, soon to be 3, because his girlfriend at the time was pregnant with his 3rd child. And I'm going to show the footage now, but I'm going to give you fair warning. It'll hit you right in the feels, for sure. So, here's what it was.
Tonight we're learning more about a man who died saving lives in a Joplin Pizza Hut.
In our continuing coverage, Larry Seward spoke with the victim's girlfriend.
Christopher Lucas loved fishing.
He loved the feeling of catching a fish whenever it'd bite the line, bringing it back in. That was the best feeling in the world to him.
Still, this 26-year-old felt strongly about taking care of others, especially his girlfriend, Brooke Prater.
He just had a general care for everybody. It's part of his connection to God. He was a God-fearing man, and he had a compassion for everybody.
So anyone who knows Chris cannot be surprised by his actions Sunday night as the 8th most powerful tornado on record shredded this Pizza Hut.
He's the only reason any of us survived in there. I guarantee it.
2 days ago, Daniel Fluhart showed us how Chris protected more than a dozen people by leading them into a freezer, then holding the door closed with bungee cord until it snapped. Chris died saving others. Prater can never forget his words to cheer her up as he left for work that day.
Right before he left, he said, "I'm going to bring you home a pizza. I love you with my whole heart." I miss him so. That phone call was the last I heard from him. Him thinking of me and making sure I'm okay.
That was Chris, but his memory endures. His fishing poles are still in his battered car. His 3rd daughter is growing in his girlfriend's stomach. Brooke is 24 weeks pregnant.
I just have to live for our little girl.
It's not the life she wants, but like 126 other families in Joplin, it's the life she now has.
Yeah. That was not easy to watch at all. I mean, and I never even knew the guy. All I knew him was by his name. Store manager of a Pizza Hut. was just going to the store and working his job, and by the end of that day, he's gone. But remembered as a hero who saved 19 total people. There were 15 customers and 4 employees that he herded into a walk-in freezer and tried his damnedest to keep that door closed. And while he himself was killed in the tornado, he saved 19 lives. And this is not the only story where people were saved by a walk-in freezer. There was actually a gas station in that same area where there were, I believe, upwards of 30 people that had to cram into a walk-in freezer. It was basically, it's a gas station freezer, so it's going to have beer and other stuff stocked back there. And a home video by a guy by the name of Isaac Duncan basically captured the whole thing and the aftermath, how he and the others managed to climb up out of what was left of the walk-in freezer, which was basically the only thing that was left from that building after the Joplin tornado had passed.
Meet Reuben Carter, a former gas station clerk who survived the Joplin tornado along with 24 others by riding it out in the gas station beer cooler.
The beginning of the day was just like any other day. Up until after the second siren went off, people were still coming in and buying, beer, cigarettes, whatever, just like it was another day. Once the power went out, everybody was kind of milling around the front of the store. I got everybody away from the windows and back toward the back of the store, against the back wall, right next to the door to the beer cooler.
Everybody get down, low on the ground.
We saw like part of the canopy over the gas pumps blow off. All the glass in the front of the store blew out. And at that point it was like, yeah, that's it. We need to go somewhere. When I got everybody inside, I was the last person in. And when I reached out, I had to lean out. And I looked around the corner of the building, or the corner of the cooler toward the front of the building where the windows were, and I saw the entire front of the store lift off the ground.
I think we're gonna do it.
I mean, it was literally the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. You could feel the suction pulling on us, trying to pull us out, and the roof was actually on my back. There were a few people praying.
Jesus, Heavenly Father.
It seemed like it went on forever. Crouching down, thinking we're gonna die, we're gonna get hit by something, it's gonna hurt if I get hit by, a piece of debris. It may be the last thing I feel. The guy who was actually filming the video, one of his friends said, "I love you, man."
I love everyone. I love everyone, man. Yeah, I love you guys. We're gonna be okay. I love you.
And so everybody was like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And it was just kind of one of those things where you wanted people to know that they were cared about if they were going to die. And then, of course, the wind started to die down, and we realized that we were, on the tail end of it, and that, we might actually pull through it.
Is everyone okay below me? I'm here, I'm okay. All right, I'm trying not to lay on someone.
Initially, the first thing after we realized that it was over was just overwhelming relief in being alive. There was nothing left of the store except for the little tiny space that was left in the cooler. The roof had split open and the back wall had fallen over at an angle, and so there was a wide open space, and so we decided that that would be the best way to get out.
That right there is where we climbed out. Alright, so here is the inside. We made kind of like a beer wall to climb at. Right back here. You can see how low the ceilings are. all the shelving was falling down. That's about where we were laying. That's where we came in.
This absolutely incredible tales of survival. You know, and the footage is just, I mean, it's just unreal. But anyways, the tornado from this point completely destroyed a Walmart Supercenter, a Home Depot, which there were many, many deaths at that building, and numerous other businesses and restaurants in this area, many of which were flattened. Numerous metal roof trusses were torn from the Home Depot building and were found broken and mangled in nearby fields. Cars that originated at the Home Depot parking lot were found hundreds of yards away. Asphalt was scoured from parking lots at Walmart and a nearby pizza restaurant, and large tractor trailers were thrown up to 200 yards away. An Academy Sports and Outdoor store along Range Line sustained major structural damage, and a chair was found impaled legs first through an exterior stucco wall there. A nearby 3-story apartment complex was also devastated, and 2 cell phone towers collapsed. In this area, numerous cars were thrown and piled on top of each other. 100-pound manhole covers were removed from roads and thrown, the ground scoured, and a Pepsi distribution plant was completely leveled. Additional calculations with regards to the manhole covers by Parka Sakar revealed that winds had to have exceeded 200 miles per hour for the manhole covers to be removed. Many fatalities occurred in this area, and the damage was rated as EF5. Extreme damage continued in the area of DeCoyne Road in southeast Joplin. Many houses and industrial and commercial buildings were flattened in this area as well. The industrial park near the corner of 20th and DeCoyne was especially hit hard, with nearly every building flattened. Several large metal warehouse structures were swept cleanly from their foundations, and several heavy industrial vehicles were thrown up to 400 yards away in this area. One of the many warehouses affected was a Cummins warehouse, which was a concrete block and steel building that was destroyed. The last area of EF5 damage occurred in the industrial park, and a nearby Fast Trip gas station and convenience store was completely destroyed. Many homes were destroyed further to the east at EF3 and EF4 strength in a nearby subdivision, and East Middle School sustained major damage. Then, as it continued on an east to southeasterly trajectory towards I-44, the tornado finally started to weaken, but nonetheless, vehicles were blown off the highway and mangled near US 71 at exit 11 on what is now the I-49 interchange. The damage at and around the interchange was rated EF2 to EF3. The weakening tornado continued to track into the rural areas of southeastern Jasper County and northeastern Newton County, where damage was generally minor to moderate, with trees, mobile homes, outbuildings, and frame houses damaged mainly at EF0 to EF1 strength. And then, finally, at 6:20 p.m. Central Daylight Time, nearly an hour after it all began, the tornado finally lifted east of Diamond, according to aerial surveys. The total track length was 21.62 miles long, and the tornado was up to 1 mile across at its widest point. And the numbers that came out of this were absolutely staggering. A total of 158 people were killed. 1,150 were injured. Over 8,000 buildings were destroyed or damaged. And the total cost was $2.8 billion. That's with a B. $2.8 billion in damage, making this the costliest tornado in U.S. history and perhaps even in world history. Unreal. So, a preliminary survey of the tornado damage by the National Weather Service office in Springfield began on May 23rd, basically the next day. The initial survey confirmed a violent tornado rated as a high-end EF4. So it was an EF4 at first. But then, subsequent damage surveys, however, found evidence of more intense damage. And so the tornado was upgraded to an EF5 with estimated winds over 200 miles an hour, peaking at 225 to 250 miles per hour. The scope of the damage was immense. According to the local branch of the American Red Cross, about 25% of Joplin was completely destroyed, though emergency officials reported some level of damage to about 75% of the city. A week after the tornado, Joplin's mayor estimated that 25% of the businesses licensed in the city were damaged or destroyed. Official accountings of the precise number of buildings damaged or destroyed vary somewhat. We do know that it was over 8,000 plus, but according to the National Institute of Standards and Technology technical report, in total, 7,964 buildings were damaged in Joplin, including 7,411 residential buildings and 553 non-residential. At least 3,734 of those buildings, including 3,181 of the residential and all 553 of the non-residential buildings, sustained so much damage as to be considered destroyed. According to a Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA study, 8,264 homes were impacted, and of those, 3,884 were significantly damaged and 4,380 were destroyed. So, the number definitely varies somewhat, but needless to say, over 8,000 buildings were either damaged or destroyed by this tornado, which is insanity. But it also severely damaged critical infrastructure in the city, which also hampered emergency response and recovery efforts. Approximately 4,000 electricity distribution poles were damaged. More than 110 miles of distribution line was brought down. 135 transmission towers were affected, and an electrical substation in the path of the tornado was completely destroyed. 2 more were damaged, but were able to be repaired. In the immediate aftermath of the storm, approximately 20,000 people were left without power, and those with homes left intact could not get it restored until 10 to 12 days later, when their dwellings were approved for safe occupancy. The ultimate cost to rebuilding Joplin's damaged electricity system was calculated at $25.7 million. The tornado also caused about 4,000 leaks in water service lines, dropping Joplin's water system pressure below operating level and necessitating a block-by-block effort to find and repair the service leak lines, with a water boil order issued for the entire city in the meantime. Water pressure was returned to normal outside of the damage area within 48 hours, and the water boil order was lifted after 5.5 days. Approximately 3,500 gas meters and 55,000 feet of gas main were damaged, and it took 2 weeks to stem every gas leak. 2 weeks. Whew. Some damaged mains could not be shut off because they served critical facilities like Freeman Health System, the lone remaining hospital in Joplin since St. John's was completely destroyed. In East Joplin, 3,000 to 5,000 pounds of anhydrous ammonia was released from a valve at a trucking facility and quickly contained. No significant toxic releases occurred. Good thing. With 21 cell towers down and their fiber cables damaged, cellular communications, voice calls, in particular text messages less so, were heavily impeded. Temporary mobile cell towers were deployed by wireless carriers to fill the gap within 24 hours. By May 24th, 3 towers owned by AT&T and Sprint had been restored. An early estimate from catastrophic risk modeling from Equicat Incorporated placed the insured losses from the tornado at $1 to $3 billion US. $1 to $3 billion. By mid-June, more than 19,000 insurance claims have been filed, a number that eventually rose to 61,000, with a total payout of more than $2 billion. 31% going to homeowners, and 5% to those who lost vehicles. The impact on the insurance industry was not so much due to the number of claims, but the cumulative effect of such a large number of total losses. More than 2,500 local people employed in insurance were involved in some capacity. It was presumed that State Farm would assume the largest share of these losses, having market share of 27% for homeowners insurance and 21% for automobile insurance. The $2.8 billion in damage is the largest amount for a tornado since record keeping first began in 1950. So in other words, it is the highest total in world history. So there you go. As of May 2013, the official death toll from the National Weather Service was listed at 158, while the city of Joplin listed the death toll at 161, 158 direct from the tornado. The list was up to 162 until one man's injuries was found to be unrelated to the event. In one indirect fatality, a policeman was struck by lightning and killed while assisting with recovery and cleanup efforts the day after the storm. Another 5 indirect fatalities occurred after a disease outbreak of mucormycosis infected 13 people, possibly 18. Shortly after the tornado, authorities had listed 1,300 people as missing, but the number quickly dwindled as they were accounted for. Many people were reported to have been trapped in destroyed houses. 17 people were rescued from the rubble the day after the tornado struck. Of 146 sets of remains recovered from the rubble, 134 victims have been positively identified by June the 1st. This total included 4 sets of partial remains, some of which may have been from a single person. Yes, some of these people were basically torn apart by this tornado. Unreal. On June the 2nd, it was announced that 4 more victims had died. 6 people were killed when St. John's Regional Medical Center was struck by the tornado. 5 of those deaths were patients on ventilators who died after the building lost power, and a backup generator did not work. The 6th fatality was a hospital visitor. The Joplin Globe reported that 54% of people killed died in their residences. 32% died in non-residential areas, and 14% died in vehicles or outdoors. Joplin officials, after the tornado, announced plans to require hurricane ties or other fasteners between the houses and their foundations. Devices add about $600 to the construction costs. Officials rejected a proposal to require concrete basements in new houses. Officials noted that as of 2009, only 28% of Joplin's new homes had basements, compared with 38% 2 decades before. At least 1,150 people were injured severely enough to seek treatment at regional hospitals. Injuries range from cuts and bruises to impalement by large debris. Ouch. Officials said they rescued 944 pets and reunited 292 with owners. And then, in 2013, there was actually a dispute about the rating of the tornado. The American Society of Civil Engineers published a study disputing the tornado's initial EF5 rating based on surveying damage on over 150 structures within a 6-mile segment of the storm's path. According to the report, over 83% of the damage was caused by wind speeds of 135 miles per hour or less, the maximum wind speed of an EF2 tornado. An additional 13% was caused by EF3 wind speeds, and 3% was consistent with EF4 winds. The study found no damage consistent with wind speeds over 200 miles per hour, the minimum threshold of an EF5 tornado. Researchers concluded that the inability to find EF5 damage was due to the absence of construction standards that were able to determine the necessary wind speeds. Bill Colborn, a member of the engineering team that surveyed the damage, declared that a relatively large number of buildings could have survived in Joplin if they had been built to sustain hurricane winds. However, the EF5 rating stood. The National Weather Service office in Springfield stated that their survey teams found only a small area of EF5 structural damage, and that it could have easily been missed in the survey at and around St. John's Medical Center. Bill Davis, head of Springfield's National Weather Service office, said that the results of the study did not surprise me at all, adding that there was only a very small area of EF5 damage in Joplin. We knew right off the bat there was EF4 damage. It took us longer to identify the EF5 damage and that it would take winds of over 200 miles per hour to do that damage. Additionally, the basis for the EF5 rating in Joplin was mainly contextual rather than structural, with non-conventional damage indicators such as the removal of concrete parking stops, manhole covers, reinforced concrete porches, driveways, and asphalt used to arrive at a final rating. The presence of windroad structural debris, instances of very large vehicles such as buses, vans, and semi-trucks being thrown hundreds of yards to several blocks from their points of origin, the fact that some homeowners never located their vehicles, and the overwhelming extent and totality of the destruction in Joplin were also taken into consideration. According to a detailed damage survey by Timothy Marshall, a majority of houses were destroyed at winds EF2 to EF strength. However, he identified 22 well-anchored houses which were assigned EF5 ratings. So this American Society of Civil Engineers tried to say, well, there wasn't any EF5 damage. What are you talking about? And it's like, bruh, all you had to do was look around the St. John's Medical Center and you'll find it. I mean, the fact that this tornado twisted that building off of its foundation to the point where it had to be demolished. Probably the most well-built structure in the entire city. And the fact that you had concrete parking stops and manhole covers completely ripped up out of the ground. I mean, what else do you need to know? I mean, what else do you require for this to be considered an EF5 tornado? I don't know. But response was immediate. Governor Jay Nixon declared a state of emergency for the Joplin area shortly after the tornado hit and ordered Missouri National Guard troops to the city. The National Guard deployed 191 personnel and placed 2,000 more on standby to be deployed if needed. In addition, the Missouri State Highway Patrol provided 180 troopers to assist the Joplin Police Department and other local agencies of law enforcement, rescue, and recovery efforts that also included the deployment of 5 ambulance strike teams and a total of 25 ambulances in the affected area on May 24th, as well as over 75 Marines from the Fort Leonard Wood Army Base. Which is crazy. And the total cleanup is absolutely insane. The Joplin tornado generated an estimated 3 million cubic yards of debris, an amount sufficient to cover a football field 120 stories high. Removal efforts lasted for months, and at their height, more than 410 trucks a day transported debris to landfills in Joplin itself, as well as nearby Galena and Lamar. The tornado also led to renewed lead contamination on many Joplin properties. Joplin had been the site of lead mining and processing for decades before cleanup efforts began in the mid-1990s, and the tornado's upheaval of the surface as it swept houses from foundations and uprooted trees recontaminated about 40% of yards in southern Joplin, leaving behind chunks of raw lead ore the size of tennis or golf balls. The city spent more than $5 million to clean the properties up using grants from the Environmental Protection Agency, scraping off the topsoil and replacing it with clean soil, and further required that builders in the damaged area test for lead and clean it up before construction. So, like I said, this tornado just continued to have a lasting legacy long after it was gone. Eventually, the city was rebuilt, though. There was a couple of new schools that had to be rebuilt. And there was also, and of course, the St. John's Regional Medical Center was also rebuilt, but it's now renamed to Mercy Hospital, and it was reopened in 2015. But I also keep saying that this tornado had a lasting impact on the people of Joplin long after it was gone. 18 people committed suicide in the wake of the tornado, according to the executive director of the Community Clinic of Southwest Missouri, a co-chair of the city's long-term recovery team. Calls about domestic violence grew in the year following the disaster. You know, this show is basically about the cautionary tales of tornadoes. And this is about the most extreme example that if you're in the Midwest, if you're in Tornado Alley, and the National Weather Service issues a tornado alert, take it seriously. Because the National Weather Service did their due diligence in this case. I mean, the people had 20 minutes of warning time, which should have been more than enough time for these people to seek shelter or get out of the way of this storm. And yet, we had the largest death toll of this millennium, and the largest death toll since 1947. The first tornado to hit over 100 fatalities since the 1953 Flint Beecher tornado. Think about that for a second. Almost 60 years apart. I mean, back to an era where triple-digit fatalities were a common thing. But it's even more shocking today because we have all this new technology, the next radar system. And people are more informed than ever before through social media about tornado warnings and all that such. And yet, 158 people lost their lives in this tornado. There's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. I mean, we've had massive tornadoes go through cities before, and we didn't have a death toll that high. I mean, it's just inexcusable. And you can't blame the National Weather Service on this one. They did their due diligence. This isn't a situation like the Plainfield tornado where they didn't issue a tornado warning until minutes after the fact, when the EF5 rated tornado was already gone. No, they issued the tornado warning for this EF5 monster 20 minutes before it hit Joplin. At that point, the onus is on the citizens. A lot of them decided not to heed that warning, and they paid with their lives. Don't take that risk. For the love of God, do not take that risk. If there is a tornado alert in your area and you live in Tornado Alley or anywhere else for that matter, take it seriously. Take the necessary precautions just for the sake of your own life and that of your family. Don't take any chances, because you never know when the next day might be your last. So, heed the warnings, for the love of God. That's all I really want to say. And thus ends the tale of the 2011 Joplin EF5 tornado. This has been one hell of an undertaking to do this episode. And a lot of the footage that I've seen is really not easy to watch, to say the least. But I hope you enjoyed the effort that I put into making this episode. I know it's been a long time coming, considering that it's been several months since the previous episode. I apologize for that, but this episode was a massive undertaking, to say the least. But the next episode, I was initially going to do the tri-state tornado, but then I thought about it, and it's like, you know what? We're only 1 year away from the 100th year since that tornado happened. which was March the 18th, 1925. We're closing in on March the 18th, 2025. So I am actually going to save that episode for next year on that date. So you can mark it down. So, instead, for the 10th episode of Tornado Tales, I'm going to do something a little bit different. With the arrival of Twisters, the movie Twisters coming out this summer. How about we take a look back, do something a little different, a little more lighthearted, and take a look back at the gold standard of tornado movies. The 1996 release of the original Twister. One of my favorite movies of all time. And it was a movie I was obsessed with as a kid. And in my opinion is the gold standard as far as tornado movies are concerned. So we'll take a look at that next time. So thank you very much for watching this edition of Tornado Tales. And until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. See you later. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan letting you know that tonight's video was sponsored by deadliest Energy Blend and Reaper Apparel Company. Special shout out to both of them for sponsoring my YouTube channel. Dubby Energy is a jitterless energy blend that contains coffee fruit extract and was designed to give gamers a boost of energy without all the downsides of regular energy drinks like crashes and harmful ingredients. And there are several different great flavors that you can try, such as Dragonade, Push and Punch, Galaxy Grenade, Beach and Peach, Watermelonada, and the limited edition Palm Blom flavor. And don't forget to get you a plastic shaker while you're at it. If you're interested in giving Dubby Energy a shot, there's an affiliate link down in the description box below. In addition to Dubby Energy, this video has also been brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. By clicking on the affiliate link down below in the description box, you'll be able to browse through many of their different wares, such as hats, t-shirts, hoodies, and other cool items. And that's not the only thing. When you place an order and you go to checkout, be sure to type in the code PackerMan and you'll be able to save 10% off of your order. And it would also help me out as well if you use the affiliate link, so thank you if you do. And also, special thanks to both Dubby and Reaper Apparel for sponsoring my channel. Hey, what's happening, ladies and germs, and thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to hit like and subscribe to stay apprised of the latest videos for this channel. If you would like to join the Spare Parts Gaming community, links to their Discord and Facebook are down in the description. Also, if you would like to leave me a tip for the video, a link to my coffee is down in the description box below at buymeacoffee.com/thepackerman71. Also, be sure to give my channel sponsors Dubby Energy and Reaper Apparel Company a shot. Their affiliate links are down in the description box below, and it would help me out as well. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out.